How's it going, guys? When the new Space Marine Codex was announced, alongside the Ultramarines and White Scars supplements, I, and I'm sure many others, figured by this point we would be way past Space Marines, and would probably be knee-deep with Heretic Astartes going through their much-needed rules refresh. But clearly, this isn't the case. In the time that has passed, beyond dreaming of what would be inside of a Salamander's supplement, fingers crossed for a teleporting hammer, I've actually been mulling over ideas for what I expect from the future of Chaos Space Marines. So while I share my thoughts and theories, you guys can enjoy some hobby B-roll in the background, a suggestion I quite like offered by Lunaticious, which I would like to try out. On the docket this time is a Relic Contemptor Dread from my Salamander's backlog. And with that out of the way, let's get into what I expect from the future of Chaos Space Marines. Well, to start with, we can assume that a new Heretic Astartes Codex will probably follow the same paradigm as the Loyalists. That being a new codex, which will feature universal rules, shared units, revised legion traits for our first founding legions, and instead of successor chapter tactics, we'll probably see renegade chapter tactics instead, which will probably share a similar structure along with restrictions. Beyond that, we'll see standard and demonkin warlord traits, revised stratagems and relics, which may pull from the Vigilus Ablaze specialist attachments, and the psychic disciplines, both Dark Hereticus and Malefic. And finally, prayers to the Dark Gods. One of the most interesting places to start will be the Legion traits. If you have seen my Fixing the Legions video, you will see that I was fairly on the mark with regards to my rationale when I presented my proposed Space Marine fixes compared to what the new Codex provides. Based on what we have seen in the new Space Marine Codex, we will most likely see Legion traits which remove useless perks and add logical enhancements to the ones that are lacking. Obvious ones that come to mind are that the Iron Warriors will probably lose their terrible perk to reroll wound rolls against buildings, as we have seen with the Imperial Fist's new chapter tactic. Word Bearers will probably get a bevy of perks since their toolkit, similar to the Iron Hands in the 2017 Codex, is in such a poor state. And Alpha Legion's -1 to hit will probably get altered. Personally, I hope it isn't copied and pasted from the Raven Guard's changes. Rather, I would like the Alpha Legion to get more before the game begins type of perks, so we can better reflect their subterfuge and intel, allowing them to be one step ahead. When it comes to the power and prayer tables, I believe it is fairly safe to assume that there will be no major changes, if the new Space Marine Codex is anything to go by. Perhaps adjustments to casting values or ranges, but nothing as drastic as powers being removed or their function changing, and warlord traits would probably be treated similarly. On the topic of stratagems, unlike the 2017 Space Marine Codex, the Chaos Space Marine's current codex doesn't have nearly as many nonsense stratagems. This is something I detail in my video, the Astartes Disparity. However, there are some relatively minor issues that raise my eyebrow, such as non-Astartes infantry using Veterans of the Long War, looking specifically at Cultists, Zangors, and Poxwalkers. Mind you, those last two are in a different codex, but it's the same core issue. We can probably expect all the new Gold Master Astartes rules to be combined under a new rule, as seen in the Loyalists' Angels of Death. For simplicity, let's call it Veterans of the Long War, which, when I think about it, is actually quite fitting. Like the Loyalists, this rule would act as an umbrella for Death to the False Emperor, Bolter Discipline, and Hateful Assault. But should the Heretics get combat doctrines? In my opinion, no, I don't think they should. Not to say combat doctrines are bad, in fact I rate them quite highly. But for starters, it's good to draw a line where the Loyalists and Heretics are different from a game mechanics point of view. And I think Marks of Chaos are ripe to be refit for this purpose. As they are, Marks of Chaos aren't really doing anything on their own, only adding keywords for stratagems, relics, or powers, and providing the option to buy an icon associated with the mark. And like combat doctrines, they are an additional system that is, for all intents and purposes, free for the faction to leverage. Only at the moment, they don't add a valuable perk in themselves. But as I mentioned, with a bit of reframing, it could definitely fit the bill. For instance, each mark could grant an additional perk, which should probably be more powerful than the value gained from a single doctrine, which makes sense to me, unlike combat doctrines which can shift over time for you to maximize as the situation demands. Marks of Chaos are far more inflexible, and being committed to them denies you options from your toolkit. And like combat doctrines, specific legions can obtain additional perks for committing to specific marks, in which case going unmarked should also provide you with worthwhile perks, which can encourage certain legions which are not supposed to be dedicated to specific gods, the encouragement they need. I think enhancing Marks of Chaos in such a way would mirror the new Space Marines toolkit in terms of its mechanical complexity, but allows that layer to function differently, which again seems pretty fitting to me. I don't know about you guys, but I can totally see this kind of approach being implemented. And there's one last point I would like to share, and it's one I really hope gets addressed through one method or another. It's another Astartes disparity. But this time, it's literal and it's reversed. The Chaos Space Marine as a unit option, like the tactical equivalent, really doesn't hold up when compared to the newer Primaris. What makes it worse is the new Chaos Space Marine sculpts look fantastic, and it feels a little disheartening that they can't trade at a better rate, so to speak. I mean, the Chaos Space Marine, by all accounts, should be, well, for lack of a better term, they should be a big deal. Now this could be directly altered via their stats, where the standard Chaos Space Marine could receive a point increase and stat bump to bring them in line with the Primaris. And I for one would actually accept the argument that these aren't the Space Marines from the Heresy. They have been bolstered by the forces of Chaos, and the arrival of the Primaris type is in response to the Heretic Astartes. But it would cause some complexities to arise when you take a look at Berserkers, Noise, Plague, and Rubric Marines. If they were also bumped to tunes each, it may shift them out of their current roles in their respective toolkits, so maybe that isn't the right choice. Another concept is a performance boost could be something achieved through supplemental rules, such as whatever form the Chaos Space Marine combat doctrines and/or revised Marks of Chaos take. Or it could be done through before the game begins stratagems, similar to how the Ardboys or Scarboy stratagems function in the Orcs Codex. Initially, when the Demonkin units were first teased and we saw the Greater Possessed, I figured Possessed were going to be given a new kit and reframed to be the Primaris equivalent, which actually makes for a nice thematic mirror between the two factions. After 10,000 years, we could see what has become of the Heretic Astartes, and it provides the Force of Chaos a similar 3-tier system for their troops choices. So maybe that sort of pathway is the right way to go about it. I'm not sure what is right or best in this regard. I want the choice of using actual Chaos Space Marines on the tabletop to not be an inherently inferior choice. And that brings my expectations for the future of the Chaos Space Marines to its end. At least for now. Thanks for watching. So, what are the Heretic Astartes fans out there expecting? Do you guys want the Chaos Space Marines to get their own combat doctrines? Or something entirely different? Feel free to leave a comment below. And lastly, if you want to help this channel grow, consider subscribing for weekly videos. Thanks again for watching. These were my thoughts and expectations for the future of Chaos Space Marines, and I just wanted to share them. See you guys in the next one.